Hey everyone, welcome to Beginnings, the show that asks, where do creative people come from? My name is Andy. I'm the host of the show and a writer and performer based in spiderweb and cockroach-filled Los Angeles, California. There's been a crazy heat wave going on lately here, and so we take out Mabel real late for her walk. And one thing I've discovered is that every tree has a spider web on it, and every bit of sidewalk is covered in cockroaches. How are you all doing? Hey, today, putting out a special episode. This is the last one I recorded before quarantine. I've been holding on to this for a while. I didn't want to give up the last piece of pre-quarantine world yet. I mean, can you imagine an hour where we didn't talk once about viruses, where we didn't talk once about descending fascism? And who is my guest for this final slice of heaven before we all went through a paradigm shift into a meat grinder? Why, it's Andrew Becker. That's right. Someone with almost my name. If you don't know who Andrew is, let me read you his bio. Andrew began his musical career with the post-Farrakhan Discord Records band Medications, drumming on their first few records before moving to New York to form the band Screens. But it was with his move to Los Angeles that Andrew began recording mostly on his own under the moniker Human Potential. He's released 4 albums under this name. I'm Glad You're Alive, his most recent, produced by Woods Jarvis Tavernier, was just released earlier this year on What Delicate Recordings. I thought it was great. So I said, Andrew, come on over. Let's talk. And we talk a lot about what it means to have almost the same name as someone, if it means anything. His childhood, as always, on the show. And just a lot of stuff about, what it means to be a drummer and kind of the tensions of being in a band, how that can sometimes be a good thing, sometimes be a bad thing. So I hope you enjoy this episode. If you do, you want to check out other episodes of the show, they're all there on Spotify. You can download the MP3s at beginnings.libsyn.com. I've done hundreds of episodes with every type of musician, from Mitski to Matt Sharp, as well as artists, writers, actors, comedians, and so forth. If you enjoy the show and you want to subscribe, you can do that on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, whatever Google's service is, and a bunch of other places. And you can always find me on social media at Andy Beckerman on both Instagram and Twitter. All right, got some great episodes coming up. Who we got? Josh Radner from How I Met Your Mother, Mac McCaughan from Superchunk, Owen Pallett of Final Fantasy and Arcade Fire, and tons of other cool people, so stay tuned. But for now, let's talk to Andrew Becker. So we do have the same-ish name. I'm like 3 letters more than you.
A little bit, yeah.
I was contacted like 2 weeks ago. There's a comedy writer out here named Marty Beckerman.
Yeah, Marty Beckerman.
Which is, do you know?
The famous Marty Beckerman. No, no idea.
Which is my dad's name. So it was very disconcerting because I know what his email address is. So I got an email from someone else named Marty Beckerman. And I panicked for a moment. I don't know why, but just the idea of for some reason, getting an email from someone with the same name as my dad. I didn't know it was someone else at that moment. When the moment I saw it, I thought it was my dad, and I'm like, why is this from a different email address? Why is the subject line about another comedy writer with the last name Beckerman? It was very strange. The same thing when I saw that your name was Andrew Becker, almost my name.
Well, if that happened to me, I feel like I'd be strangely impressed that my dad knew how to change email addresses too. You know what I mean? He knew how to actually go about getting a new email address. That would be the most impressive thing.
Your dad is not tech savvy in the slightest?
I wouldn't say in the slightest. I mean, he's not deft in the art of tech. I would say that. But yeah, I don't know.
What did he do for a living? Is he retired now?
He's not. He is actually busier than he ever has been. He did a few different things. He worked in government for a while. Where I grew up in Wilmington, he worked for the city of Wilmington in Delaware for a little while. Worked for the federal government for a little while, and then he got into finance, and he did sort of large scale public finance work.
What does that mean?
Like he would structure bond deals for like big municipal projects, stadiums and things like that. Hospitals. So he did that for like 25 years, and then he worked for Citigroup for a long time, and then when 2008 happened, he left and started doing his own thing, and now he's got like a solar energy company that where he finances deals to build large scale solar energy projects, commercial projects. Yeah, I don't know. He's got his hands in, I don't know, a bunch of different pies. He's an impressive dude, really successful and works really fucking hard. So
is that something you emulate? Is that something that you got from him? Do you, or admire, I guess? Or just work ethic?
I would like to think so. I hope so. That's something that I either inherited or emulate. I feel like I have a pretty good work ethic. But yeah, I mean, that's certainly something I've always looked up to and admired about him, for sure.
This is definitely something like of our parents' generation, where you could work at a place for decades. And I think there's definitely, again, this is part of this like cultural, either generational shift or paradigm shift, however you want to really discuss it. But like, my parents don't understand anything about my lifestyle at all, especially like the lifestyle of a freelancer. Sure. Especially the lifestyle of a freelancer working in the arts.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally, yeah.
It's they're like, wait, no, you
didn't exist when you were growing up.
You get a job for a couple decades and you retire from that job.
Right.
It was definitely like my dad was like a business guy in the 80s. And then the boss at his company was a terrible alcoholic and drank a very profitable business into the ground. And then my dad had to like figure out what he wanted to do, and he became an accountant. He like went back to school and became an accountant. He's quote unquote retired now, although he still goes into work. So
no doubt.
whatever retired means at this point for him. Because he is a workaholic. Again, I started asking about this stuff because I'm like, I've definitely become a workaholic because of my dad. I mean, I'm not blaming him, but I'm saying like the pattern was passed down.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I also had. My experience growing up with my father was, he always worked really hard, and he also. Raised my sister and I more or less by himself for a while too. So those things, you just, I just admire him a lot for what he did, and how hard he worked to not only make his life what it became, but also, to give us the best life that he could.
Yeah.
So,
was he? Is he from Wilmington originally?
Well, no. He was born in Bethesda, Maryland. His father was a Marine, so they moved around all over the country basically until I guess until my dad entered high school, and then they moved to Newark, Delaware, and then from there on out, he stayed in Delaware.
Do you think? I think about this a lot. My grandfather was in the Army in World War II, and I've tried. I don't know much about him. My grandfather died before I was born.
Yeah.
And I just have to like kind of pick. I was gonna say pick up the pieces. That didn't make any sense. I have to kind of like see some clues in my dad to see like what might that relationship have been. And especially like military. There's something about like military service or military training that I think like structures people in a certain way. And I'm like, do you think that's structured I mean, like, I wonder if there's like some kind of like this is so tenuous based on like 3 facts I know about you, but like that connection, like this workaholism into like military discipline.
I do. I think there's definitely connection. I mean, I think my dad had 2 brothers growing up. So, I mean, my grandfather was a lieutenant colonel in the Marines, and he was in World War II in Korea, and he was a tough dude. You know, like he disciplined them. Like, you know, back in the day, it wasn't unusual to discipline your kids physically, but like he did, and so, you know, it was. I don't think there was a lot of, you know, love shown to my dad and his brothers growing up. And I think that sort of created, I mean, my grandfather was like, gave them a lot of independence starting from when they were like 6.
Yeah.
You know, so they basically could do whatever they want. I think that more than anything, that he expected them to be independent, but comport themselves with, you know, a certain level of respect to other people. And I think also instilled in them, like, you know, the importance of education and things like that. I think that more than anything probably had a bigger effect on my dad and his brother, because they sort of went in different directions but became successful and all worked really hard at what they did. So I would say that they had to rely on themselves from a really early age to do everything. I think that more than anything probably led to them being, you know, ended up so for them being, you know, to be successful in what they did.
I also think about like something like from my grandfather's era that like leaked into my dad. My dad grew up mostly, he was like a teenager in the 60s. And I think about like this kind of like, especially I wonder about this military kind of background where you repress your emotions, where it's very like, and it's just of the age. To be a man is to not show emotion and I'm curious about a lot of this stuff, especially because the things that we do, make music or films or write or whatever, is primarily about showing emotion. And I think to be good at it is to be able to understand your emotions.
It's an emotive process. Yeah. It's catharsis.
Yeah. I mean, especially like you're a drummer, right? I mean, among other things, but like I know that in other bands you have been a drummer, and that's specific. I mean, it's weird there's something about drumming. I've never really talked about it before, thought about it until right now, but like, because it's a crossroads between precision being a kind of like very regimented kind of thing, and also a very emotive thing, because to be a good drummer is to be able to kind of let loose in a certain way. A rhythmic way, obviously.
Yeah, sure.
That might just be banal, but like I'm just, but like, because like you could have someone who just like I can just keep time if I need to. If you sit me down behind a drum set, I can, you know, I have enough coordination and rhythm to like, you know, do 4/4, maybe a 3/4, something like that. But to be I definitely don't have I don't know, even if I had the training, I don't know if I would have the feeling to be a good drummer, if that makes sense.
It does. You know, for me, I don't know, drumming was always a very physical thing. I mean, I don't play a lot of drums anymore, but when I was playing, I mean, I play drums when I record, but when I was, you know, playing in bands and touring and stuff, I played as hard as I fucking could every time I played. And I don't know, and I don't really, I mean, obviously not every drummer did that. And and I'm not saying that was better or worse than anybody else, but that's just the way I did it. I don't know, the way I had to do it, the way I felt like, this compulsion to like beat the fucking shit out of these drums. And it was like a cathartic experience, like a lot of the times. And, I think if you have that connection to your instrument and you're actually like showing effort and that you care and that you sort of love what you're doing in that regard, then I think that makes a connection with people that are listening and watching as well.
Yeah.
That there's like an emotional connection, I think, as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I guess the thing that I'm trying to think of then is does this like kind of like, well, I never even asked the first question, but like, did you see, what was your family openly emotional growing up? Or did you talk about your emotions, things like that? Was it repressed at all?
Oh, no. Yeah. My dad is, I think, coming from the background he did, I think he made a conscious decision to be the antithesis of his father.
Oh, interesting.
So, with my sister and I, he was like very, very, very caring, supportive, emotional. The best dude. Like, I think he just, I don't think he realized it until he actually had my sister, who's a couple years older than me. Because I know he's told me before, he's like, I didn't even want kids. And, your mom's like, I really want this kid. And I was like, fuck, all right. And then, it's probably like this for a lot of parents who like hold their child for the first time, like, oh, actually, it's pretty cool. And then like, it just, their paradigm completely shifts. And
my dad said the same thing.
Yeah. I think that's probably how it goes for a lot of new parents. But yeah, my dad was really, to this day, he's like, he tears up a lot. He's like, he's great. He's an amazing dude.
So this whole thing that I'm describing was not, because like I think about it like there's a lot of ways you can go about it, but like I think about it in this binary, even though it's more of a spectrum, that if you repress your emotions, there's certainly like robotic ways you can make art, and there are like very good robotic ways you can make art. I've seen plenty of people who are kind of shut off make incredible things. But I think those are more, this is just my intuition. I don't have it. It's anecdotal. I don't have anything to back it up. I think the way those people make art is very niche. I don't think it can. I think the more emotional you are, connects with a larger audience. Yeah. I know that I grew up very repressed, and so I had to get good at writing and especially performing. I had to go to therapy. I had to really learn about my emotions because it just wasn't coming through in any of the stuff I was making. I was connecting with some people, but not enough.
Yeah, I hear that. I think. I was probably this same way. Not maybe I didn't grow up the same way, but I probably emotionally like repressed my emotions or whatever. But I think that was probably why I liked playing drums so much. Is like I didn't have to be upfront, and I could sort of just thrash away in the background and not be the focal points. Yeah. Or sometimes be the focal point, but not really the focal point.
Right.
Like, I'm not supposed to be. You know what I mean? Because I can be pretty shy and not really into I don't like attention generally. So yeah.
Yeah, so that's the other end of this. Binary, but spectrum really is. You may not be aware. It may be repressed, and it comes out through through whatever you're making. Yeah. And then maybe in retrospect, you're like, oh, okay, so that's what I was feeling. Yeah. And it's been channeled through this, or you could remain ignorant of. And it just kind of like Freudianly That's a phrase. That's a word Freudianly comes out like that.
Yeah. Could be. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I tend to give binaries on this show just to give the person I'm talking to something to grasp onto. But it really, like, there's like 30 other probably choices you could make of like how you as a person, how the art you make flows out of you and your relation to it. And then that of course changes over time as you change as a person.
Yeah. I feel like there should be like a Chase lounge in here. Like I'm having like psychotherapy.
Was good. I mean, if we want to continue on this, but like, it seems like your dad was like the looming figure in your development as a person.
Oh, no doubt. Absolutely.
Was your mom there?
Yeah. Well, I mean, my parents got divorced when I was really young. And I lived with my dad. I was raised by my dad. So, I saw my mom occasionally. But yeah, and my dad remarried, when I was like 4 or 5. And my stepmom had 2 kids. So we sort of formed a new family at that point.
And was she just not interested in, what was your mom's story?
My parents just hated each other. It was pretty simple. Like, they got married when they were really young. It's sort of the same story. Like, they got married when they were 20, I think, which wasn't unusual in 1970. But, when I think about it now, I'm like, that's completely absurd. I barely know who I am right now, and I'm 41. You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
I do understand.
So yeah, they were married for like 7 years or something, and then I think they just had enough of each other, and that was it.
That stuff really baffles me. My parents are still together, but they got together like super young. Yeah. They got together when they were 22, I think. They got married 8 months later, and
oh wow,
like Naomi and I, so this is our 10-year anniversary. We got engaged 7 years ago. We are common law married now. We're getting actually married this year.
Oh, far out.
And we're like, yeah, this is time. Like,
yeah, right.
The idea of like meeting, getting married 8 months later, my parents at least didn't have us for another 7 years.
Yeah.
Me and my sister.
Yeah. Yeah.
So at least they enjoyed their married life for a while.
Sure.
Before. But like the idea, like, I can't even imagine, like, I do like the woman I dated when I was 22. She's a very nice person.
Sure.
But the idea of like that, like being married to her is crazy in my head.
Yeah. It's not even right. So yeah, it's about the person, it's about yourself, but it's also about like, your experience in relationships is pretty important as well. You know how to be in a fucking relationship when you're 22? Like, I certainly, maybe some people did. I didn't fuck.
No.
Like, the fuck. I didn't know how to be in one when I was 33. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I do.
I think that stuff's also important. But I don't know. That said, I have a friend of mine from high school met his wife in Las Vegas at a like craps table or something, and they got married a month later, and they're still married. This is like 15 years later or something like that. I don't know. And they seem to be really happy, so I don't know.
There's no hard, fast rules about it. It's just like, I think that like if you maybe know who you are as a person, if you're lucky enough to have like existentially figured out things in your teens, there's a handful of people that do it.
Sure.
It's not it's not like it's nobody, but if you meet someone who also has figured out themselves in some way, who's like self-aware. I don't think I was self-aware at the time. I was like, no. I was a dummy and emotional dummy.
Yeah.
And so obviously, like if you kind of know who you are, or I guess the other way you could do it is like both of you don't know who you are and you remain ignorant of who you are.
Right. Or you learn together. I don't know.
Yeah. That's a good way of also saying it too. You both figure it out together. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. But other than that, like, so, okay, did they get divorced when you, like, were you conscious of, like, of them as people?
No. They got divorced when I was less than a year old, I think.
So you only knew them divorced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But so when does he get remarried? How old are you?
I was 5 when my father got remarried. Yeah.
So that's basically like what you're conscious, but like your stepmother is your mother in the sense that like that's who you grew up with.
Yeah, I mean it's who I lived with. Her and my dad. I mean my biological mom lived, I don't know, 5 miles away or something like that. So I mean we would see her, weekends and stuff like that.
Does she have does your biological mom, does she have an influence on your life? Does she have I mean, you see her every once in a while, but
yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking about your like how do you, again, the reason I ask these questions is like this is the foundation for you to make things for a living, right? The kind of like direction. If it is a parental thing, like Naomi and I mean, my parents and her mom definitely had influences on us, but we're much more influenced by our peer group, our friends, the things that we consumed.
Yeah.
Much more than our parents.
Yeah. I think that's definitely the case with most people. I also think, I mean, people are just born inclined to something. Like, I do think that. I think I was inclined to be attracted to music. Like from, age 1, 2, I was just, that's what I was into. It was just like, it was in me. I had an instinct for it. You know what I mean? I think that's the case with a lot of people, whether it be visual art or music or writing or whatever, I think those things come to bear pretty early. That's my experience, at least with other people that I know that are interested in the same mediums or whatever. But I think there is a role that parents play in encouraging and supporting it.
Yeah.
Which I think my father played a really large role in that. I mean, my dad was also, he plays guitar. He played in a band in the 60s and stuff.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, they're called the Spectrum 5. They put out like a 7-inch actually. It's pretty fucking good actually. It's like kind of like psychedelic soul music. But so, growing up there was music, and I think once he saw me being attracted to that and banging on a fucking pot with a, spoon or whatever, he's like, all right, this is what he's interested in. And, I think I was 3 when I got my first like little toy drum set. And, so from a very early age, that was encouraged.
That's interesting. So, I mean, there's so much. I think about a lot about timing, and I think about, like, specifically, if your dad had not had a musical background or thought to channel, like you're banging on a pot. So there's something about you that, like, this feels good, right? This hitting this pot.
Literally, like, I don't know, you're 2. Like, what else could it be besides like just an instinct? Like,
right.
I can barely express myself verbally, but yet I feel this compulsion to do this. Like,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, yeah. There's something like I'm very like I tap a lot. Like I drum a lot. I'm not a drummer, but I know how to like keep rhythm and stuff like that. And that's not a thing that I'm interested. It's not like I'm like, what's cool tapping and being at like
tapping's pretty cool. Yeah.
Being at I remember when I was like 14 or 15, we drove up to the Bronx to visit some family members, and I don't think these were like my mom's cousins. I don't think we had I had ever really met, maybe at like my sister's bat mitzvah or something like that. I don't know, or mine. But they really didn't know me, and I'm just sitting there and I'm bored by the conversation. So I'm just kind of like using
Sorry,
chopsticks.
I just want to say something real quick. So you are my Jewish doppelganger.
Why is that?
Because Becker men, and I'm Becker. I'm the Christian. You're the Jew.
So okay, so are you Christian?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not Christian. I'm nothing.
You're nothing.
But
okay.
You're the Jewish doppelganger.
We're close to the same age.
How old are you?
40. So I'm a little younger.
Yeah.
But
interesting.
There is. Well, I want to get back to the name thing.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Continue.
No, but I just from a young age, I would just drum. I would like keep rhythm. I would like make polyrhythm. Like I didn't listen. I mean, besides like Graceland, it's not like I knew anything about. That's like white polyrhythm.
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
Obviously, Ladysmith Black Mambazo is not white, but channeled through Paul Simon.
The white.
So like, it's not like I it's just like whatever. It's something that appealed to my brain.
Yeah.
And I'm like taking chopsticks and kind of drumming with them. And my cousins thought maybe I was. I mean, this is before autism was like known, but they asked my parents, like, is he autistic? Is he something? Because I was just drumming, and that's like the thing that appealed to me would to be so like I didn't care about the conversation. I just wanted to drum. I just wanted to like hit things. And so I get that, but like there's something interesting about like if your parents, like my parents didn't channel that into anything. I had to get into music as a teenager and ask for a guitar for Hanukkah when I was 16 before I started playing anything. Okay. But your dad recognized that as an early, like, because he had been in a band and he had recognized that stuff. Maybe from an early age, he was able to channel that into music.
Maybe, or maybe it was just that apparent to him. That's what I liked. I can't say whether it was because he had a background in music. I'm sure that didn't hurt.
Right.
But also, my, I think it was actually my stepmom that bought me my first drum kit, little like baby kit or whatever. But, so they were both super supportive. I think it got more annoying once I, got in high school or in middle school and high school when I had a big boy drum set and one played really fucking loud all the time. I think that it probably gets a little harder to be encouraging because you're like, shut the fuck up. I'm trying to watch Oprah. Just like stop playing. But regardless, they were always supportive.
I mean, is there something besides the fact that like you just felt it from a young age? Is there something specific about drums that like once you were kind of aware as a person that you were drawn to them, or is it just a kind of instinctual bodily thing?
I don't know. I think it just started that way, and I just started doing it from a young age. So I didn't even really like give consideration to another instrument for really. I took piano lessons when I was younger, but it didn't hold my attention the same as playing drums did. I fucking loved watching MTV and like just banging on drums as loud as I could. Like, I don't know. It was just, I think I was attracted to like the physicality of it and the sheer volume of noise it could produce and the dynamics and I don't know.
I mean, there is also something interesting. You said you're a shy person. There is something interesting about, were you shy when you were a kid too?
I think I was a lot more shy then than I am now. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you don't strike me as shy now. Like I've had people on the show who just like kind of sit there quietly and
really?
Who I definitely have to like coax out of their shell. So you don't strike me as a shy person, but when you were a kid, you were pretty shy. You were.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Did you have like friends? Did you?
Not a one. No. Yeah, of course I had a lot of friends and stuff. It was more, I think, the process of making friends probably took me longer because I'm not necessarily like, if I meet somebody initially, I'm not the most gregarious person in the world, especially when I was younger. So, if I went to a new school or something, I would kind of just sit back and, sort of feel things out. And you know what I mean? I wasn't like, really like making a huge effort to go out and be, overtly friendly and hey, I'm Andy, what's up? Like, that just wasn't wasn't really me.
Yeah, I didn't even know how to do that when I was a kid. I had friends and there were people I liked and I could talk to people I didn't know at school. But the idea of this is like a thing from the last couple years of like, oh, you mean I could just walk up to someone and be like, hey, I'm and like shake a hand.
Yeah, I still very rarely do that. Not because not nice. It's just like that's not me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, or I'm not it's not because I'm not friendly. It's just I don't really take that initiative often, you know?
It takes energy. And I think that I tend to be a kind of introverted person and all my energy is saved for cocooning in some way. Like, or, it takes a lot of energy to get out of the cocoon, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Oh, I also, I loathe small talk. So I really enjoy like talking to people, like if it's real, like I just hate bullshit.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, I'm just not good in those situations. Really.
Me too. I don't know how to do it because it's uninteresting to me to talk about I don't mean this in a like.
It's uninteresting to talk about yourself. This is an interesting experience for me because I'm generally loath to talk about myself. It's like it's weird. It's a little weird to me, but I understand. It's like I have girlfriends that have been like, dude, like you have to do that sometimes. I'm like, I know, but it just, I don't know, it feels so weird. I mean, like and then they're like, it's weird that you think it's weird. I'm like, is it? I don't know. Like, I don't know.
Well, was it an interesting process for you to go from, so you're a documentary filmmaker, you were a drummer, to go from that to you've been making music for a while now as yourself, well, not yourself, but you, right? As opposed to like being someone behind the scenes more, behind the other band members or something like that.
Yeah.
Is that a strange process for you or like what motivated that?
Well, what initiated that was I was in a band back in Brooklyn called Screens that I thought was really good. I was the drummer and we'd recorded a record, which I also thought was really good. I still think it's really good, actually. And it was done and we were going to release it. We were getting ready to release it. I was going to release it on my label. And we had some stupid, like, petty disagreement about artwork. And to be fair, I'm sure I was just being completely obstinate about it in hindsight. And then it wasn't an argument. It was more just like difference of opinion in which I think I probably refused to yield, which is not unusual for me, which is one of my bazillions of flaws. But and a couple of days, or maybe it was the next day, our singer was like, "Yeah, I'm out," and I was like, "Fuck," and so that was a bummer. That really struck me. And at that point I'd been in bands for, almost 10 years, I guess. And I was like, fuck this. I was like, I'm kind of done over being in bands. Like, I'm just going to do it myself. I'll just do everything. I've always wanted to do a solo project and I never had the skills, I still don't, to play anything else. And my time was always consumed with drumming in bands that I never really took the initiative to do. Once that was over and I was like, well, I'm not going to be in a fucking band anymore. Also, I was in my early 30s. I'm like, I'm not going on tour. I don't want to be poor anymore. Like, I need some semblance of a career, like a little bit of stability. And so I was like, all right, well, I can work, pursue filmmaking and producing and writing and stuff like that, and also do my own musical project. And that's what so I I had this nylon string guitar that an ex-girlfriend had bought for me for my birthday, and had just been like, I never really, I mean, I fucked around with it a little bit, but never really played it. And I just like taped a contact mic to it and bought recording software and just started writing songs. Like I had no idea how to play guitar. And I just started writing songs, and that just snowballed into like the first Human Potential record. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I can write songs. I mean, whatever, like whether anybody else thinks I can, that's another matter. But I was like, all right, this is actually cool. It's fun. So it wasn't hard, I guess, to get back to your original question, to make that transition, because I've never played live. It's a recording project. So it's just me in my office writing songs. Like, that's it, you know?
Yeah, I still think there is something, even if you're not playing live, there's a difference between I'm part of this ensemble. Now this is me. Like I know you were kind of joking when you're like, you were my Christian doppelganger, but I mean, we are like,
I shouldn't have used the word Christian. I'm sorry. I'm not Christian. Not that there's anything wrong with being Christian, but I'm certainly not a Christian.
How about non-Jewish doppelganger?
There you go. Non-Jewish. That works.
But I mean, they're like similar things for me. I had a lot of control issues with being, when I was in a band or when I was in an improv group, that caused tension in the group because I had a certain vision of the way I wanted things to be. And there were some things I would compromise on. And there were other things where I'm like, no, this is the way it should be. And I'm not going to yield on this.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to be like, okay, well, if you're not going to yield on it, on certain things, then either you have to have the power to do the things you want to do.
Yeah.
And it's not an ensemble and you're the one making.
Yeah.
Or you have to just do everything yourself.
There is no such thing as a democracy in a band. I don't like, I've never met a band that was a true democracy. But I feel like that doesn't fucking exist. There's always somebody who's sort of taking the lead. Like it just, otherwise it's not going to work. Like I feel like it's not going to work. That's my experience, at least, and most other people I know have had the same experience. So, but I'm I need, like, I am sort of a controlling person. I feel like I need to control every aspect of what I do, whether it's filmmaking or making music or whatever. Like, and you know, that's probably something I need to work on is like, doling out duties and trusting people more, especially on the filmmaking side and, whatever. But like, you know, the documentary that I release and like films or in the albums, like the albums are all me. I mean, I mix them with other people who have the technical know-how to do things like that and make it sound good because I'm bad at recording shit. But, and then, you know, on the film side, it's like the film that I released in 2017, you know, I made with a buddy, but we did every creative duty we did, you know what I mean? So it's like, and it's hard for me to relinquish that control.
Yep.
Which is probably a problem for me, but
well, I mean,
but at the same time, I'm like, I have very specific visions, and sometimes it's very hard to verbalize that. Which maybe doesn't make me a good director. But at the same time, I don't know. I'm fine with doing it all because I kind of want to anyway. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's really difficult because you have to, like, whatever your thing is, whether you're in an improv group or a band or making a film or something. I mean, film's slightly easier in the sense that if you're the director and it's like a smaller production, you at least have a lot more control and it's yours. So you say what happens in some way. I found that, like, either if it's a band or some ensemble group, everyone has to be on the same page, or someone has to have such overpowering charisma that they entrain everyone to follow them or to get on the same page with them. Or there has to be like, I think about a lot of bands who like, there's some kind of, the tension is, there is a tension there, but it's not so that other things, whatever they are, I don't know what, but like other things overpower the tension or keep the tension contained. And I often find those bands, like I think about like, I always bring up Pavement, but like I think about Pavement a lot because you had a bunch of people, at least Steve Malkmus and Spiral Stairs seem to be very different people with very different artistic visions that had enough in common that they were in a group together. And so there was some tension from the disparate parts. Like Spiral Stairs seems more into like punk and the fall and like post-punk, that kinds of stuff. And Malkmus seems more into classic rock. But there was enough tension that it made it interesting without pushing everyone apart immediately.
Yeah. I mean, I think another analog is like Throbbing Gristle, who's one of my favorite groups. You know, a lot of what I've read about them is like, well, the tension is what made things incredible. I don't know. I've never experienced that. I've never been in a band with people I didn't like or didn't really get along with. I'm not exactly sure how that would work. I just can't envision that. Like, I mean, it's hard enough to communicate when you're playing in a band with a bunch of dudes anyway. Like, just because we're shitty. Like, when you're, I don't know. Like, for me, when I was like a 29-year-old dude, I wasn't very good at communicating stuff. Hopefully I'm better now. But, you know, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
I do.
So if those relationships were, you know, even more strained, I can't imagine how that would work, but I guess it does. I can't envision it.
Something has to overpower the tension or contain the tension. Like, I think, like if we're using Pavement, I wonder, I don't know when the relationship between everyone soured.
Yeah.
Right. At some point it got so bad, like, that I think Malkmus came in basically with Terror Twilight written. Like, hey, these are the songs and here is everyone else. And I think like Spiral Stairs had like a couple songs on there or something like that. But like, I think maybe like there are other things that overpower the tension. Like they're touring and this is their career at that point. And you don't want to
that. And they, or they honestly believe in what they're doing in the music. It's like that. And, you know, whether or not and maybe it's like whether or not you get along with somebody, you know, if you respect their abilities creatively, maybe that overrides it. You know, I don't know. I've never been in that situation really, but
yeah, I'm sure they had enough stuff in common because I think about like collaborate, like my wife and I do a podcast together and we have very different ways of making things and we have different senses of humor. There's enough of an overlap. We love each other. And there's enough of an overlap in in our own interests.
Sure.
That there's points of commonality.
Yeah.
But it's difficult to make decisions sometimes because she has ways she wants to do things and she's a controlling person in the same way that I'm a controlling person. And so you have two kind of stubborn people that have a certain thing that they want to do. And sometimes compromise is difficult in those, in that space.
Yeah. I fucking hate compromising. I hate it. It's a problem. It can make it hard to work sometimes with me. But that's one of the reasons why I do this recording projects. I don't need to hear from anybody else. I don't need anybody else's opinion really, nor do I really want it, to be honest, you know? And I think that's healthy sometimes.
I mean, besides being, I'm trying to put this question together in my head, but I'm trying to think about like, okay, so, because there seems like there's a kind of contradiction in you, and I don't know if this was in you in childhood or not. Maybe you can say something on it, but like you say you're a shy person. You're also, you play drums, which is definitely like an ensemble thing. I think that it's difficult. There's obviously like jazz or experimental projects that are drum focused.
Uh-huh.
So you start off with an instrument, at least that is, if you want to be in a band that is more well known than kind of like obscure things, needs an ensemble with it, even if it's just one other person. You know, you could be one of the like White Stripesy bands if you want, right?
Right.
But like you're kind of a shy person, but you also are kind of a controlling person, right? That to me, that's interesting. That because there's a contradiction there, right?
I don't know. Is there?
Maybe. Like, I think it's difficult to be a shy person that also wants to control things. I mean, you can be that person. I'm sure there's like tons of people that are like that, but I think you're always yearning to be in control. And then how does that guide your behavior when you're younger? I mean, was that what you were like when you were younger? Did you want to control things, or is that something that came in later once you were part of like I
think that probably came in probably when I got involved in doing creative projects, where, I sort of having the tendency to think you're always right isn't great. I do have that tendency sometimes, which has, inhibited me in a lot of ways. But in other ways, it has helped. But I think I don't know. I mean, it took me a while, I think, to grow confident in what I was thinking my instincts were right, in a way. To the point where I felt comfortable enough, I think, where I was like, all right, I'll just do this project because I think I can do something that might be cool. You know what I mean? I think it took me a while to get to that place.
I mean, did you always it goes back to me being a childhood. I always thought I was right. Right. I grew up as my identity was the smart kid in quotes. I was the smart kid. So obviously, and I was top of my class. So obviously I was right about everything.
Yeah.
Even though obviously I hope it comes through that I wasn't right about everything most things really that were outside of intellectual subjects. Sure. And even that was, whatever my level was. Right. But it took my struggle in my 30s was to that my knee-jerk reaction was not to argue things. If Naomi said something and I was my knee-jerk reaction would have been to be contradictory.
Yes.
And as a way of differentiating myself, that this is obviously I'm a different person and I am my own sovereign being.
Yeah.
And this is my identity. But also no, I'm right about this. And I remember previous relationships where I would argue tooth and nail with someone.
Yeah.
And there was always a point, not always, but most of the time there's a point in the argument where I'm oh shit, I'm wrong. And I would continue to argue. And then in my 30s, it was a lot about when you reach that point, or hopefully you recognize it before then, and you're just no, you're wrong. Admit you're wrong. Say, I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
I'm wrong.
It's a process of maturity. I mean, I'm still coming to terms with it. You talk to my girlfriend and she'd be like, yeah, he thinks he's fucking right all the time. It's so annoying. It's something, it's just it's annoying, and it's just a process of maturing and knowing that you don't have to when you're in a vacuum and you're creating something by yourself, it's that's fine. But when you're not, it's not. So, it's a process.
Yeah. But it was a life or death thing in my head where it's just your existence, who you are, your identity in some way depends on being right.
Right. And being correct isn't the be all end all of anything.
Nope.
Especially about most things that you're going to discuss with people. It's really unimportant. So,
but were you like that as a kid? Did you have an identity? But I mean, besides
probably
again saying you were shy, did you have an identity as something, the drummer, or was there something more to you? Again, I was quote unquote the smart kid.
I don't know. I'm not sure I can answer that question. I don't know.
I mean, my parents thought I was going to be a lawyer because I was so argumentative and be like, I am right, and here's why I'm right. I would lay out arguments for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure I like exhibited anything like that, but like, yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, that would be something to ask my family. You know what I mean? I'm not really sure what my like identity would have been. You know, I don't know.
I mean, what did other kids in school think of you as? Like, did you play sports?
Yeah, I did. I played soccer my whole life. Yeah, I played a lot of soccer and was just interested in music, really. I mean, I don't know if that, I guess, I don't know what else defines you when you're growing up besides like your interests and your family. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, I would like,
friends.
Yeah, I mean, my identity wasn't wrapped up solely in that. I was also weird. I think that's definitely a part of my identity as a kid. I was definitely into music. And I think what I think really happens is like you have this constellation of things that creates your identity. And you're also like, it's a time where you are searching for your identity. You know, I ask sometimes, I'll just ask you, but did you try on different identities? Did you have different personas that you tried on, or were you always pretty much you in some way?
That's an interesting question. I kind of feel like I have always kind of been me. I mean, not kind of. I think I've always been like, I feel like I don't know. I feel like I've sort of been dressing the same way since high school. Like, I was interested in things that like, that not a lot of people I knew were interested in. So I sort of had to carve this thing out and research stuff. And so just by dint of being alone in that environment was like, it sort of carved my own path. You know, I was like, I played sports a lot, but I was also super into fucking punk rock and like hardcore and weird music and sought that out. And not a lot of my other friends were, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. 100%.
So, it really wasn't until I think I got to college, and then soon after college, I moved to DC, that I found people that were like, I think, I don't want to say the people that I was searching for growing up, because I don't want to dismiss my greatest friends in the world with whom I grew up. But people that were more interested in things that I was interested in and were like fucking weird and like,
yeah. So to return back to the beginning again with names and doppelgangers and like, do you think there's anything like when you're like, oh, I'm going to this guy's house to be in an interview. His name is eerily similar to my name.
Yeah.
Was there any? I'm trying to think. Like, I'm not a woo-woo type person, so I don't.
Wait, what does that mean?
Oh, like new age type.
Oh, okay.
Like I'm fairly. I think there's a scientific explanation for most things. So I don't like when I see things. I'm like, oh, that's interesting, but there isn't a deeper thing. But there is something about like your name does do certain things. Does present a certain way you might be to the world. I don't know. I mean, like my name screams Jew. Like if you, like someone's going to be me, I mean, there's plenty of people in showbiz. There's plenty of Jewish people in showbiz that have changed their names to something more goyish
yeah, for sure.
To quote unquote succeed.
Yeah.
So there's a certain something that my name does yell at people. That I'm like, oh, I just assumed in some way that you were Jewish just because it's close enough to my name.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I just assumed. This may not, and I don't know. Like, I just assumed because there's an MAN at the end, because that's traditionally like a Jewish
Yeah.
suffix or whatever on last names, right? Am I wrong?
Yeah, it's Germanic. Like, our name was changed at Ellis Island. It was like Becker Meister with a J.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it's like Polish. I mean, it wasn't even. We came here before Poland was even Poland. It was like part of Russia at that point.
Right.
And so there was like a J in there. It's kind of Germanic. And then at Ellis Island, they're like, fuck that. And they changed the Meister part. It was like, we were bakers. And so they changed it to, to man. So technically it's like, it could have been anything. We were bakers. They could have made it Baker. They could have made it Becker, right? If they wanted to.
Yeah. Why did...
I don't know. I mean, we could have had the same. There's nothing. There's no. The Judaism doesn't lie in the man part.
Yeah.
So it is interesting. Like, we technically could have had the same name if, the person at Ellis Island was like, I'm sick of writing this after 6 letters.
Yeah. Maybe that's what happened to the dude was just sick of writing. He didn't. It's like, I'm just going to shorten this last name. Fuck this MAN shit.
I mean, there's some significance, I guess, in the fact that some part of our family line were bakers. I mean, that it comes from...
Right, that's what Becker means.
Yeah. In German. Like, so at some point...
I fucking love cupcakes. I'll tell you how much.
Oh, yeah, I'm a carb queen. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think of... there's some weird cultural connection between people with similar names. But beyond that, I don't know what, like, it doesn't, I don't know what that feeling is. I just know that there's like a weird strand just because there's like a nomenclature in common.
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever met another person with the last name Becker or Beckerman. I mean, the only person I can cite is Boris Becker.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
There's a handful of Andrew Beckermans that I've found online because
really?
Through narcissistic Google searching of my own name, which is also like, I mean, I'm a public figure, so there's a certain amount of like, there was a point where I was one of many, and now I think if you Google search my name, I'm the top.
Oh, there you go.
But there was a certain amount of like narcissism in like, well, am I the Andrew Beckerman if you search for...
Do you go by Andrew or Andy?
I go by when I was...
How do you feel about the name? Do you go by Andy?
Yeah, I do. But it was because when I had day jobs, I had this like fantasy in my head that at the day job I was Andrew. And if I put that on the employment, if I put that on the application or whatever, and they were lax in searching for my name, that all my comedy stuff would not come up.
I see.
So if I did comedy stuff under Andy and professional stuff at the time under Andrew, then it didn't work. Like, I remember like I had a job at NYU, and at the first like meeting, my boss was like, and Andrew here does comedy, so we should go see him sometime. I'm like, fuck. Yeah. No. Right. The whole point was to have a divided life.
Yeah.
But you go by Andrew.
I do. But I mean, my family and my friends call me Andy.
Andy.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. At some point, I was just like, I don't know. I was like,
we get artificially grouped together. This is the thing. We're not. It's like cats all get cats are cats, right? Even though we're all humans, because we have individual names, we tend to think of ourselves isolated, right? But then like all Andrews get grouped together because they're Andrews, even though we have nothing in fucking common. Maybe it seems like you and I are somewhat similar.
Maybe,
but I think that's more of age and artistic temperament and location of where we grew up, more than anything. But like cats are just cat, even if they have names. You don't feral cats don't have names, so they're just like cats.
Yeah,
a bunch of cats. Whereas like, and then if you narrow it down to Andrew Becker's, Andrew Beckerman's, we all get grouped together for no reason.
Is that unfair?
Yeah, it's 100%. It's just the name. Like that gets the same consideration as cats or sticks or something. And then people try to find some significance in it because it's strange. You can name people anything.
Yes, you could.
Yeah, I could be like tricycle trident.
That's catchy.
Yeah,
it's a strong name.
It could have been. Yeah, I could have been. My parents could have been like whatever. They could have been like weird hippies, and they're like no last name. This is a tricycle hyphen trident.
I'm sure somebody has named their child Trident.
Oh, probably. I mean, kids are named Apple.
Yes, that is true. A
seafaring child.
I dated this girl back in Brooklyn, and she worked at a daycare center, and many of the kids just had just the craziest names. But I remember her telling me this one kid's name was Atreyu.
from the Neverending Story.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet there's a ton.
But then had a really like Jewish sounding last name, which just made it totally unexotic.
Atreyu Lipschitz.
Seriously, it was something like that. I was like, that's fucking brilliant.
But you don't feel any specific Bonhomme to another Andrew, right? I think it was like there's some kind of expectation for us to, and I'm like, I don't know. There's just like, it's strange.
Yeah, again, like it, I don't know. No. Answer your question.
Yeah. Besides the strangeness of another human being that's different from me walking around with a similar name. There's nothing else. There's no other feeling. It's just, there's a little surreal.
There's no cosmic synergy to me.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. A little surreality to it, but that's about it. A tinge.
But it's also not that unusual of a name, I don't think. I mean,
it's not a ton.
I mean,
we're not John Smiths. We're not.
Are we not the German John Smiths?
No, I don't think so.
Who's that?
Gustav Klimt. I don't know. What's a normal German name?
Yes, that's definitely normal.
Anyway, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
How do you feel? You said
I feel
with psychoanalysis at some point. You said,
this was a great experience.
Oh, good. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye, oh, bye, oh, bye, oh, bye, oh, bye, oh, bye, oh, bye, oh.